You are listening to the FTWpodcast.com, where we talk about wrestling in all of its laughable glory. Here's a clip from this week's episode.
Generation Me asked for and were granted their release from TNA after Sunday's Destination X. Do you think they're going to be in WWE?
They have the possibility of at least being an FCW.
Well, that's not the same thing, is it, Joe? That's not what I asked. I asked, will they be in WWE?
They're in the WWE machine. In FCW.
Scott, you say no. I'm in agreement with you. Why do you say no?
WWE needs to take tag teams far more seriously before they'll pick up a team like that.
Bingo.
They're kind of starting that with the Usos a little bit, but it's still so lackluster. They really need to take it more seriously.
Yeah, of all the people that would fit into WWE now, Generation Me is not it. Maybe in about a year, 2 years from now, after they've had a decent run of tag teams and actually maybe had a legitimate push for a tag team match on a pay-per-view, that'd be great. But yeah, the Generation Me is way too serious as a tag team, like Scott said. Another one, Orlando Jordan was also released, but his release was due to roster cuts. The rumor is that TNA wants to trim the roster down to 20 wrestlers, and there just isn't enough time to showcase more with only one show. Do you think this is a better route to take than what we talked about last week with Tracy Brooks, adding another show? What do you guys think of that? As far as not just trimming Orlando Jordan, but the idea of culling the roster down to 20 wrestlers because they only got the one show.
20?
Well,
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, if they're going to stick with only 20 wrestlers, which seems kind of like a small roster, really, that really doesn't leave a whole lot of room for error due to injuries and such.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
But, if you're going to do one show, I suppose, but 20 just seems a little too, seems too small. I mean, even indie wrestling federations have a larger roster than that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have at least 30 guys. I mean, you figure 30 to 35, that gives you enough people to mix up storylines so you don't have the same 5 top guys always in the top picture. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. The other thing is, so it's 20 wrestlers. They dropped Orlando Jordan. They got rid of Generation Me. This is going to be the only time we talk about this. I know it. But it looks like the fans wanted them to sign all 4 of the finalists of the X Division series. I think that's a little excessive. You got to think some are eliminated, like Kid Cash. But Cash, according to what we're reading on Twitter, has signed with TNA. So even though they're dropping people, they're bringing people back in. I mean, do you think that they would sign all 4?
If they could and can do it for a very low rate.
Just because there's nowhere else to go?
Yeah, I mean, if you can drop 2 guys, let's say, if you can drop the payroll of, let's say, Jeff Hardy and pick up 2 or 3 dudes for half the price of Jeff Hardy,
you can probably pick up 6 guys for the half of the price of Jeff Hardy.
Right, but I mean, guys who are hungry to work, and I think that would be a good idea. But yeah, doing the younger talent thing is good for TNA.
That's the thing, though. That's not what the rumor says. The rumor says they want to trim it down to 20 wrestlers. My problem is we don't know which 20. I mean, if you got Flair, Jarrett,
Scott
Steiner, Hogan. I mean, do those count? Because those are 4 massive bank accounts and 4 slots that are not being used by, like Joe said, hungrier and better and more vibrant talent. So, I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, if those are the names that are going to stick on the roster with the 20, I mean, it's a joke then. Because ultimately, if they're trying to save money, they should be getting rid of these so-called legends that are just taking up space.
Yeah, I mean, look, guys like Flair. Flair is a waste. Nobody wants to see him wrestle, him and his bitch tits. I mean, nobody wants to see him wrestle. I mean, yeah, will we see him bleed? He'll bleed everywhere. He's a wrestling god. Yeah.
The kick, flip, fall on his face thing.
Yeah, I mean, he'll elbow a coat, beat up some shoes. But really, aside from using a walker, that's all he's going to be doing in TNA. You're not using him as a spokesperson, as a voice anymore for these younger guys. He's done. Get rid of him. Let him go. Let him go on to back to WWE. Let him go on to do something else. Just get rid of him.
Well, you've heard our thoughts, but now we want to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, and even join us live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. at the FTWpodcast.com.